How fast is the new Isuzu Impulse Turbo? How does 950 miles per hour sound?
Back in 1972, Japanese automaker Isuzu built their first car for sale in the United States, the Chevrolet Love pickup, followed by the compact iMark and Impulse, and SUVs like the Trooper, Amigo, and Rodeo. Although they sold well in the 80s thanks to pitchman Joe Isuzu, by 2008, their final two cars in America were just rebadges from General Motors. This is the story of the failure of Isuzu cars in America. This is my old car.
Faster than a speeding... Well, you know.
Thanks for the many suggestions to review cars from Isuzu. One or more of the models mentioned in this episode may eventually get their own standalone future episodes. Isuzu began as far back as the 1920s, building trucks and buses, an industry of which they are still a major player in today. The US saw their first Isuzu-built cars as the British-designed Hillman Minx in 1953. But the first Isuzu-designed car, the compact Bellel sedan and wagon, wasn't introduced until 1961, followed by the 117 Sports Coupe in 1968. With such a small car lineup, Isuzu attempted to form several mergers with other Japanese automakers during the 1960s, including Subaru, Mitsubishi, and Nissan, but each of these mergers lasted no more than 1 year each. So it was inevitable that Isuzu would eventually turn to General Motors, as it was their only way to gain a foothold in the American car market. In 1972, GM bought a 34% stake in Isuzu, and for anyone who has watched my other episodes of car companies which allowed GM to take partial ownership, you know how this will eventually end. The first Isuzu-built car to be sold in the United States started in 1972 with the Chevrolet Love, with the LUV acronym meaning Light Utility Vehicle. Although it was sold in other export markets as the Isuzu KB, or sometimes just as the Isuzu Pickup, it sold in their home market of Japan as the Faster, a name which thankfully was never used in America, considering the Love was initially only available with a 1.8-liter four-cylinder making 75 horsepower, and it took over 17 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. But the little engine clearly didn't hurt sales, topping out at over 100,000 in 1979, and its new for that year all-wheel drive earned it Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. Being an imported pickup model meant that it was subject to the infamous chicken tax, a 25% tariff placed on all imported trucks, implemented in 1964 as retaliation for tariffs placed on U.S. chicken imported into France and West Germany. So Isuzu got around this by importing its pickup without the bed attached, and then later adding the bed, a loophole which only imposed a 4% tariff. Isuzu introduced a second generation of the Faster in 1980 for the 1981 model year, and GM continued to sell it as the Love for another year, but sales had dropped significantly since its high point in 1979. The second gen offered a more fuel-efficient 2.2-liter diesel as an option, but it was even weaker than the gas version, with only 58 horsepower. By 1982, Chevrolet dropped the Love in favor of the S10, which was the first American-built compact pickup.
They don't offer an optional V6. S10 does.
And it may be my first My Old Car episode dedicated to a pickup model. Isuzu also co-produced the Gemini with GM in 1974. Whose underlying architecture would form the basis of GM's T-body platform, known best in America as the Chevy Chevette.
That's okay, kid. I can't say Chevrolet.
A similar car was also sold as the Buick Opal, although sometimes branded as the Buick Opal by Isuzu. Ironically, 35 years later, some Buicks were sold as rebadged Opals. The Buick Opal name changed to the Isuzu iMark for the 1981 model year, and it wasn't much faster than the Faster. Starting with the iMark second generation in 1985, a rebadged version also started selling as the Chevrolet Spectrum.
We call it
One of several Japanese cars sold by GM, back when it was actually considered good marketing to sell cars on their Japanese versus American build quality. The Spectrum would later get rebadged as part of GM's new import-only Geo brand, but only for 1 year. Meanwhile, the Isuzu iMark was still being sold in America.
Its top speed is 300 miles per hour.
Although oddly, the iMark was rebadged as the Pontiac Sunburst in Canada. Selling alongside the iMark was the Pup.
Behold the Isuzu Pup, the lowest priced truck in America. About $6.
The Pup was spelled P'-UP, as an abbreviation of pickup, and was the second generation of the Faster, essentially taking over where the Chevy Love left off for the 1982 model year. Four-wheel drive models had the name Rodeo added onto the model name, although in Australia, GM's Holden division called them the Holden Rodeo. The Pup name was dropped in America, starting with the third generation in 1988, after which it was simply called the Isuzu Pickup.
You can trust me.
Starting in 1983 for the 1984 model year, Isuzu imported their Piazza Sports Coupe as a replacement for their 117 model, but in America it was badged as the Impulse.
It's so fast, it will go from Paris to Rome in 2 minutes.
Initially available only with a 90 horsepower 2-liter 4, a turbo model was introduced in 1985 that bumped the horsepower to 140. Beginning in 1987, Isuzu partnered with British automaker Lotus to upgrade the car's suspension components, brakes, and dampers. These cars also had Handling by Lotus badges, and as a result were sometimes called Lotus Piazzas in Europe. Also by 1984, America was introduced to the Isuzu Trooper, a 4-wheel drive compact SUV that marketed itself as a better alternative to typical large SUVs of the time, being smaller and more nimble, especially off-road.
Its 4-wheel drive can take you anywhere. In fact, I drove it up here myself.
It still shared a common trait with any other Isuzu in America at that time, a tiny 4-cylinder making only 86 horsepower, and didn't have much in terms of luxury features, but its low cost made it a decent competitor. Isuzu had already been selling the Trooper in Japan since 1981, where it was known there as Bighorn. In 1989, using their faster pickup platform, Isuzu introduced the 3-door Amigo SUV in America.
Hey, Amigo, are you paying attention? Well, here's my friend. Not you. The guy in the Amigo.
The Amigo offered a 2.3-liter 4-cylinder making 102 horsepower, which at the time was actually a considerable power jump compared to what previous Isuzus once offered. And it was also a convertible, at least for the rear seat passengers. A more mainstream option was the 5-door Isuzu Rodeo, released in 1990 on the same platform.
Rear anti-lock brakes.
Kids, put the tire back on.
And could be had with a GM-built 3.1-liter V6. And if you bought it in America, it wasn't an import, being built in Indiana in a plant shared with Subaru. Although Isuzu vehicles in America in the late 80s were not all marketed to the same target buyer, they all had one thing in common, and that was Joe Isuzu.
Hi, I'm Joe Isuzu. Here, in my factory, I equip these iMarks with millions of standard features.
Starting in 1986, Isuzu began a marketing campaign starring actor David Leisure, with a recurring gag that Joe was a pathological liar, which necessitated constant on-screen corrections to every outlandish feature he tried to sell.
Here are the 1986 Isuzus. These iMarks can go from LA to Tahiti on a gallon of gas.
It was this quick rise to fame that likely helped Leisure land a role on the NBC sitcom Empty Nest in 1988.
Whoa, what have we got here?
Isuzu sales increased during those years, likely as a result of these ads. But over time, the gag became more famous than the company itself.
You have my word on it.
The name Joe Isuzu became synonymous with liar.
Joe, you're not going to use that in the commercial, are you?
Oh, no!
So much so that during the 1988 presidential debate, Michael Dukakis tried to knock his opponent, George H.W. Bush, by comparing him to Joe.
If he keeps this up, he's going to be the Joe Isuzu of American politics.
Some executives at Isuzu were afraid that the constant lies in the ads, even though they were clearly intended for laughs, may eventually backfire, not to mention the public would grow weary of the same old gag.
You have my mom's word on it. Mom?
Joe Isuzu ads were phased out by 1990, although Isuzu brought him back briefly between 1999 and 2001.
Honey, you just killed Joe Isuzu.
With Isuzu moving into the 90s without Joe, Isuzu started to transition away from cars and focus more on trucks and SUVs, such as the wild-looking XU1 concept from 1993. With the Chevy Spectrum gone by 1989, Isuzu partnered with GM again to offer another version of the Impulse, the Geo Storm, which replaced the Spectrum in Geo's 4-car lineup in 1990. The Storm quickly became one of GM's most popular models. However, the Impulse barely sold at all. Sales of the Impulse were so poor that by 1993, Isuzu ceased production, and as a result, the Storm ended production that same year, despite it being a top seller for Geo. To help expand their model line, Isuzu began a partnership with Honda in 1993, allowing Honda to begin selling the Honda Passport and the Acura SLX. In return, Isuzu sold a rebadge of the Honda Odyssey minivan, called the Isuzu Oasis. And Isuzu continued to sell GM-built vehicles, replacing their original pickup model with the Hombre in 1996. Although the Hombre was just a rebadge of the S10 that Chevy was selling in Brazil, It still helped make 1996 Isuzu's best sales year in America.
Oh, somebody help me up.
And although the Amigo was dropped from the American lineup in 1994, it came back for its second generation in 1998.
A marvelous thing. Everyone knows it's Amigo.
Along with a facelifted Trooper model.
Because you never know what you might miss.
In 1998, GM entered a new agreement with Isuzu to form a joint venture called D-Max to produce diesel truck engines. This resulted in GM owning 49% of Isuzu by the following year. By that time, Isuzu also released in America what is widely considered their most unusual vehicle, the VE Cross.
Hey! You left your wallet on the trunk!
A two-door SUV that shared many components with the Isuzu Trooper, but it definitely didn't look like the Trooper, thanks to its front grille that resembled snake fangs, or at least that's what I thought they looked like to me. Isuzu did not intend the VE Cross to be a mainstream seller, and as a result, it kept the production low, resulting in only around 4,100 being sold in the US until its cancellation in 2001. 2001 also saw the introduction of the Axiom, which was intended to fill the gap left by the aging Trooper that ended that same year. Joe Isuzu was even brought back to help sell it. But 2001 also marked the end of Honda's partnership with Isuzu, due to the vast majority of the sales going towards Honda's models. GM also started pushing Isuzu to concentrate more on their commercial vehicle and engine business, giving them little support for the Axiom, resulting in its cancellation by 2004. GM also had no plans to invest in Isuzu's older SUVs, resulting in the end of the Amigo and Rodeo that same year. In their place, GM only offered rebadged versions of two models, the Isuzu Ascender, which was a rebadge of 4 other GM SUVs, including the Chevy Trailblazer, and the I-Series pickup, which was a rebadged Chevy Colorado. With many of the American Isuzu dealers shutting down starting in 2005, GM sold their stake in Isuzu, with Mitsubishi and Toyota eventually taking over some of what GM once had. And Isuzu officially exited the US market on January 31st, 2009. Today, Isuzu still manufactures and sells commercial diesel engines, trucks, buses, and construction equipment. So although the American consumer may have forgotten about Isuzu, the commercial market still depends on them to this day. Makes you wonder how Joe Isuzu would sell it.
The all-new Isuzu pickup! More standard features than you deserve! High-speed, double-wall cargo van and the largest payload in its class! Yet it's the lowest-priced import truck in America!
Nice, huh?
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you once owned a car from the 80s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
It's me, Joe Isuzu. I used to sell these.